Welcome to RPG Book Club, the podcast where we play a little bit of a video game and talk about how it makes us feel. I am Elias, Sailor Eli Warren.
I'm Maddie Grace Webben.
And Francesco JRPG Tinasso.
And Sam is going to be back next week. Oh, thank God.
No, he's not.
Fuck.
I was wrong.
Fuck.
Welcome to the final episode of our run of Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney. Sam's not, even though we're playing a different game next week, Sam is not back. Turns out he's still on parental leave, which is good because that's good. We're operating.
Take care of his baby, I guess.
We're operating under the Nordic model, where we give lots of parental leave because we live in a good society. Although we'll announce what the game is at the end of the episode, though if you've been following, you probably fucking know already. Unless there was a dramatic turnabout in the polls, who knows? Exactly. Anyway, we're playing the very fucking last bit of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, literally just the final trial through the end. How's everyone doing this week?
I'm doing fine. Not much to report. I did hurt the fuck out of my back on Friday and had or Thursday night. All I did was bend over to get some cat food.
Oof.
And my back was like, ha ha ha, fuck you.
That's happened to me before. You know what? I think that happens because we're getting older.
I thought you were going to say because we're gay.
No, that too. Is back problems a gay thing? I don't know.
I don't know.
No, it's just once you start to get older, your body's just like, hey, I'm not going to work now.
Yeah. Well, I've dealt with chronic back pain for a few years now.
Oh, shit.
And, like, if I bend over a certain way, I guess it, like, pinches a nerve or something. And I am fucking out of commission for at least a day, if not two.
Oh, wow. I have that, although not as serious, with my left leg. Kind of my upper shin area.
Oh, yeah.
It just has this weird ache that comes and goes on a regular basis, and I don't know why.
Ugh,
but it's usually not so bad. It's usually just, like, annoying, and it sucks, but it's not like I can't walk or anything.
Yeah. But other than that, I've just been RPing a lot in Final Fantasy.
Hell yeah, as usual.
It's been great.
I have continued to be utterly, unimaginably, hopelessly addicted to Dragon Quest Builders 2. It's an incredible video game. It's, like, seriously, like, in the top 3 or 4 Dragon Quest games. It's also enormous. Which is something that the older Dragon Quest games don't have. Older Dragon Quest games Dragon Quest V, like, it's a pretty slick game. It's like 30 hours, you know? Like, you go through the story, bada bing, bada boom. But Dragon Quest XI and this game are more like modern games where they're filled with, like, optional quests and stuff like that. So, oh boy, I'm gonna put, like, 10 billion hours into this game. It's gonna fucking ruin my life. Other than that, I had a weird scare involving health insurance that I won't go into, but basically I lost my health insurance and then got it back.
Yay. Glad you got it back.
It was really stupid, and I won't go into it. So that's me. Francesco, what's up with you?
Yeah, no, not much. Saw a good movie this past weekend. Went to go see Knives Out, which is still playing.
What a great movie.
I have heard it's really, really good.
I went in there knowing absolutely nothing about it. I just knew it was a mystery film, and I love mystery films, so I'm like, yeah, I gotta go see this. And it was really good. It was a lot more funny than I expected. And,
it's a fucking riot.
Yeah, the plot was also really great. Like, I don't want to spoil anything, because I feel like the true enjoyment of that movie is going, not knowing any of the characters, knowing very limited plot details about what happens, and then just, like, watching it with, like, a fresh set of eyes.
Even like, the main premise, which is to say, this is completely non-spoilery, in my opinion, that my favorite thing about the movie, like, the humor's good, the twists are good, but my favorite thing about the movie is who ends up being the central character. Because at the start of the movie, you don't know. You just have all these characters. But one of them ends up being sort of the main character of the movie, aside from the detective himself. And this main character, they are just a great character, and a lot of the story's themes come to light. It's sort of social commentary, political themes come to revolve around this character, and the fact that you don't, and that is my favorite thing about the movie. I love that character. I love what the movie is saying in regards to that character and their struggles. Yeah, I love that movie.
Nice.
And see, I can't even spoil that because even that is a surprise.
No, yeah. The less said about that specific part too, I think is
for sure, yeah, absolutely. I love how it's a murder mystery where the central tension of the film, the scariest thing about the film, is not even the murder mystery; it's something else.
Yes.
Yeah. I love this movie.
Like,
we can't talk about it at all.
Yeah,
go watch the goddamn movie.
Cast.
I just actually messaged Ken and was like, hey, do you want to go see Knives Out sometime
Y'all
soon?
should totally see it. And then next time we'll holler and we can spoil it for our listeners and say, fuck them.
So
excellent.
The best recommendation I could give is I usually go, like, there's like one specific movie theater that I usually go that's near me that I really like. And they have like very limited runs of like shows, like movies. And so they stopped playing it. And so I refused to go see it because they stopped playing it and I missed my opportunity. So I was like, I was going to wait for the DVD or like the Blu-ray or whatever to come out to go watch it. And I didn't. I ended up going to a completely different theater that I never went to. And after watching that movie, I was like, I totally do not regret this. And my only regret is I did not watch this sooner because it's that good.
Hell yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Fantastic film.
Anything else, or is that? Cool. I mean, that's a pretty big event watching a movie.
Yeah, no. That was a big thing. I mean, I played a few games. Nice. I played the new Kingdom Hearts DLC, which was interesting. I'll just say briefly, I know even less about Kingdom Hearts now.
Wow, I didn't think that was possible.
I saw a tweet recently that really lays it out. They're like, here's the thing about Kingdom Hearts. It's got this super, super intricate, super detailed and elaborate and fucking bizarre lore that the fans obsess over. But you know who doesn't care about the lore? Anyone involved in making the games. And the person tweeting was like, that's a compliment. They're like, we care so much about this. The people making it are just making shit up. They will make up new contradictory stuff every single game, and we, the fans, have to, try to make sense of it. We don't have to, but, we do, because we're fucking weirdos. And I'm like, yeah, that is 100% true.
There was an article someone sent me at one point that was like, the Kingdom Hearts storyline isn't as complicated as you think it is. And I read 3 paragraphs and then my brain exploded. It's like, alright, cool. I don't get it.
So all of the dictionary terms aside and the fact that it was on 18 different consoles and you had to have followed the story from each of them to really understand what's going on at any given time. I'll just say this. The DLC drops you into a moment without giving you any context as to where in terms of the game's timeline that you're in, at that particular moment. Right? And after going through about 15 to 20 minutes of cutscenes, right? You get this faded pop-up that shows up that says 75 years later. And then you just wonder to yourself, wait a minute. Was that
75
scene,
years after 75 what?
Years, yeah, was that scene 75 years later? Was everything that I watched up until this point 75 years before what I'm going to see now? What is going on? And it's in that moment that I realized that whoever is writing that storyline for Kingdom Hearts, I think, at this point just feels like, you know what? I'm suffering, you should suffer too.
Agent Cooper, I'll see you again in 75 years.
Yep. No, that's so good. And again, I don't know. I do think that author intent isn't, real. Author's dead, all that kind of stuff. You can ignore author intent to make your own meaning out of art. But also, I think it is important to be they do not know what they're doing. And I think that if you engage with the series understanding that, but still engaging with it anyway because you have a fucking broken brain and are bored, then it's such a fascinating thing. And I say that as someone who's played half of the games and hasn't played 3 yet.
I have played 1 and 2, and I will probably never play 3.
I was way deep into the Kingdom Hearts lore hole not a couple of years ago, many years ago, and haven't managed to get back into it yet. But oh boy, yeah. Recently, politically, the term "nobody" started being used. Did you see that?
No.
Well, I won't go into the political shenanigans, but Hillary Clinton was like dunking on Bernie, and she was like, "Nobody likes him." And remember when Hillary called Donald Trump's fans deplorable, and then they all started calling themselves deplorables? Well, it was like that. All the Bernie people started calling themselves nobodies, and I'm like, no, you can't. You can't call yourself that. That's the Kingdom Hearts thing. You're doing gaming. Stop it. So all these like non-gamers are like, we're nobodies, and I'm like, oh, you don't understand what you're saying. This is making me so upset right now. Anywho, let's be quiet for a second so our buddy Bernard can put in some music and then talk about Phoenix Wright. Hell yeah. So, end of the game. We have the final trial. We're at the... I won't even give you a previously on this time around. Just fucking go and listen to the previous episode. A lot's happening at this point. We're in Kingdom Hearts 3 at this point. So, at the courthouse. We're at the courthouse. But where's Lana? Where's Emma?
Where's Poochie?
Where's Poochie? Yep. That's Edgeworth is like, look, Phoenix. Look, Nick. I'm sure you're really smart. I'm sure you already figured out the same thing I figured out. You know the ID number was Chief Gant. But the thing is, as soon as that's cleared up, then Lana will be found guilty. The only reason that she wasn't found guilty yesterday was because we didn't know who the number was. But once we clear it up, he'll be found guilty. So Lana's going to get found guilty in like 5 minutes. And Nick says, if you push hard to get Lana declared guilty right away, then we'll never know what's really going on. And Edgeworth is like, I'll think about it. So it's kind of cool. Like, Edgeworth is like, I could end this case. But I also know that something weird's going on here in a broader sense. So the trial starts. Right away, like before anything even happens, the judge is like, hey, Damon Gant has a proposal to make. And Gant shows up and says, hey, old chums, old chipolos, Lana has requested to speak directly to the court. So Lana fucking goes on the stand and she says, I confess to all charges. Hey, judge, please end the trial right the fuck now. Everyone's really upset. Although, in my opinion, I think Gant overplays his hand here. Right? Like, that's a bit much. Like, they were already gonna get her declared guilty. Like, he's pushing so hard that it, like, loops around to making it suspicious, right? So anyway, Lana is like, I'm confessing. End the case. And Nick is like, that doesn't matter. I don't care what my literal client, the actual defendant, says. I'm the defense attorney. And I say that we're pleading innocent. Because you already did. That doesn't change our plea. It doesn't change the case that I'm making. Which is cool, because that is actually how it is in court. And then Lana's like, fine, you're fired. I waive my right to representation. Which sucks, because at that point, literally nothing Nick says matters. And none of what he says counts. And the judge is like, well, shit. So the judge is about to end the case right there. But objection. That's right, our boy came through. It's Miles Edgeworth. He says, nope. I have not proven her guilty beyond reasonable doubt, so therefore, Judge, I recommend you do not make a verdict yet. Even though, like, I want her to be guilty, I don't want her to be guilty unless I've actually proven it. Because I'm a fucking nerd. Gant tries to stop him, but Edgy gets really pissed. He basically gets, like, really hard edge, and it's just like, fuck off. Like, no, shut the fuck up, Gant. And he says, I'm going to change what I was originally going to do. Emma's taking the stand. This shocks everyone. Lana is pissed. Because as we predicted before, as we sussed out, Lana's number one motivation is keep Emma out of this, right? So Lana is really fucking pissed, but the judge allows it. And again, like, everyone's like, fuck you, defendant. Emma testifies about what happens 2 years ago. So this next section, this next entire section, the first half of this trial involves sussing this out. She says the man. So we already know what happened earlier. The killer. What's the fucking killer's name? Jason Steele. No, something dark.
No, Joe Dark.
Joe Dark. That's right. Joe Dark was in the interrogation room, and then he ran into the room that was the office that was Lana and Gant's office, but Emma was there because she and Lana were going to go hang out later. And he raised up his knife and stabbed Mr. Marshall in the chest. It's all the stuff we knew from before. Turns out that there were two. We do learn one new thing, which is there were two people in the interrogation room that day. It was Neil Marshall and Gant. Gant was actually there that day. Marshall jumped on Dark, and the lights went out. But lightning struck. It lit everything up. And the thing that she saw in the lightning, seared into her mind. And she told it to Goodman, who, is dead now. She says she was so traumatized that she couldn't speak, so she couldn't tell Goodman, so she drew a picture. But Edgeworth is like, what the hell? I never got a picture. I didn't receive a picture for the case. Why would I not have received this information? So that's really confusing. And now Edgeworth's really on board with this. I forget exactly what happened here. I think you're just like, but where is it? We don't have it. And then you object to the fact that the picture is non-existent. And it turns out that, and I forgot to write down how you know this. Maybe you just have to investigate it your damn self.
You do investigate it. You get that 3D image.
Oh, cool! Yeah, that's right.
Flip the thing over.
Yeah, there's like no prompting. The game doesn't like give it away. Like you have to just figure it out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it turns out the evidence list you had, it's on the back of it. So you show the pic, and then the judge. And the evidence. So the picture is not super helpful. The thing is, since lightning had struck, everything was just a silhouette. So all she could see was just black shadows. So it's one person in the middle of stabbing another person, and they're holding a big stabby object in their hand, which already to me looked a little bit suspicious, but I figured it was just like bad drawing. Like it's just a very crude drawing. It's like a weird rectangle. But right off the bat, you're thinking, oh, could this be another one of those cases of mixed up identities? We don't know who's who, right? Anyway, it's not super helpful. You go into some other stuff, but then Nick realizes... the judge realizes at this point, actually. The judge is like, wait a second, that evidence list has been torn in half. Which, we already knew that from before, but it's cool that the judge himself brings it up. And then that prompts Nick to realize, wait a second, what if the other half has something drawn on it too? So Edgeworth takes out the evidence list that he had, and he flips it over, and, oh my god... It's the fucking goddamn Blue Badger.
Yeah, that Blue Badger, he's the killer.
I love how
the
game's writers and developers clearly know that the Blue Badger is creepy and annoying, because when he shows up here, it fucking plays his song.
I know. Oh god.
It's like this stupid thing is like showing up everywhere when you least expect it and just driving everyone insane. They just fucking hate it, and it's like so frustrating. Like
it's
case
like Pennywise. It's created all these bad feelings among the police, and they have to do killings.
Yes. Also, I should have said, sorry, when Nick first reveals that there was in fact a second evidence list, actually, when does he realize that? Well, I don't care when who realizes it. At some point, the point is the judge realizes, wait a second, these two evidence lists are not the same. These are not a copy of the same thing, but in fact two halves of the same list. That's when Miles Edgeworth realizes, what the fuck? 2 years ago, I literally wasn't giving the entire evidence list. I was given half of it. This is bullshit. So he's really, really mad.
Can't say I blame him.
Yeah, me either. So anyway, Nick presses. He says, is this really what you saw? Oh, because Emma does say, this is exactly what I saw. She saw a blue badger. She saw a silhouette of people stabbing each other, and then she saw the goddamn blue badger. And Nick says, is this really what you saw? What if what you saw was influenced by the detectives? You know, that can happen a lot. She's like, no. I made this drawing, like, immediately. Like, the first thing I did was when I saw Goodman, I made this drawing. And then I later was talking to the detective, so what they said would not have influenced my brain. And you're like, shit. So, your first big decision of the case, you have to realize there's a contradiction, as usual. Turns out, it wasn't just a bad drawing. The weird rectangle that the killer's holding, that's the broken tip of a knife. And when you ask that to Emma, she's like, yeah, no, that is what it is. It's like, I drew that correctly. You know, whatever he was holding had like a blunt broken end. So you go back and forth a lot, and it's like, it has a broken tip, and then they're like, but, well, that makes sense because the knife was broken. And then you're like, well, no, like the knife broke off inside of the guy. So it wouldn't have been broken at the time. It would have been broken after the stabbing happened. And then you talk about, so then they're like, there's no way to resolve this contradiction. Like, the knife, there it is. Like, this is clearly the murder weapon. The thing is in the body. How could it be broken? There's no way to resolve this. Unless somebody falsified some evidence. So Nick brings up that idea. Now, this is a very, very serious accusation. You know, you don't, when you're in a court case, you usually are trying to suss apart the truth given all the evidence. You generally assume that nothing's been falsified, because then that blows the whole thing right up, right? So by saying, what if, but the thing is, in this case, that's the only explanation. There's no way it could not be falsified, because there's no way it possibly makes any goddamn sense. So I think, so for once, they're like, maybe it was falsified. That's the only way we can imagine it. So Nick goes over the whole story, and it's a pretty simple story. He just says, here's everything we know. There's got to be a lie somewhere. There must have been 2 broken knives at the scene. And they're like, what other knife would there have been? He says, as we talked about last time, it's the broken lance from the award. Oh, I should have mentioned earlier, excuse me. This is the part that Eli hadn't played last week. The shield and the sword on the award are already broken. That's on purpose because of the story I shared of like the king and the merchant or whatever. Yeah, they're both broken, and that's symbolic. Because they broke against each other, right? The unstoppable force, the immovable object, they both broke. Anyway, so he says that's what the murder weapon could have been, and because Neil Marshall ran directly from the award ceremony into this room, so he probably still had it in his hand. He probably was fumbling around looking for some kind of weapon. You know, he needed some kind of weapon. He didn't have his gun, so he just grabbed the only thing that he had. It makes sense that he would have it, and that would have been a blunt, broken-off object, so that must have been what it is. That's the only way to resolve the contradiction. Then Edgeworth brings up the very important point. He says, dude, if that was the case, then this picture would be Goodman stabbing Dark, not the other way around. Mm-hmm. Emma says, oh my god, I remember now. I did draw the Blue Badger thing too. This is the point where earlier they were just like, what's with the Blue Badger thing? But at this point she's like, I do remember drawing that now. And they're like, wait, but the police guy didn't invent the Blue Badger for another year. How on earth could there be a Blue Badger? So then this sparks Emma's memories, and she says, here's what happened. When the lightning flashed and I saw this, I ran at both of them in order to save Neil. At this point, some new music plays. It's the same music that's like the interrogation music, but it's like a more intense version of the same song with like a heavier beat. It's great. Anyway, she ran at them. So at this point, I wrote, "Oh no," because I realized what the truth was here. Well, what I thought was the truth. This whole week is like me saying, "Oh no, now I understand what's really going on," and then being wrong like 5 times.
Yeah, that's kind of how it happened for me too.
So anyway, I don't know if y'all can understand, y'all listeners see where this is going, but if you're playing the game along, you probably figured it out probably before I did. It turns out Emma was the one who killed Marshall. She runs. We'll find that out in just a second. So, here is a big, startling revelation that I had that was wrong. So I'm not going to read it. Oh, well, I guess we'll find out what really happened later. So anyway, so what did she really see? What is the Blue Badger thing? Turns out it's that weird jar. That weird jar we found earlier. If you rotate it just right, it looks like the Blue Badger. It's an oval with 3 little spiky buddies with little circles on the end of the spiky buddies. It looks exactly like it if you rotate it just right. It's kind of hard to rotate it just right. I got it wrong like 5 times.
I think they kind of do it intentionally so you mess with the rotating mechanic a little bit more.
Yeah, that's probably true, because you're going to have to use it like 5 more times. But yeah, it's finicky.
Yeah, it took me a while.
But once you get it, here's what Nick says. He says, "Look, man, the jar was in the room on Gant's side of the room. The killer must have moved the entire body over to Lana's side, which is weird. So Nick has now figured it out, and he lays it out. He says, Emma saw what she thought was Dark attacking Neil Marshall. It was actually Neil Marshall attacking Dark, but she didn't know that. She ran at them and tackled him. Tackled what she thought was Dark, actually Neil. Neil then slammed against the table. I might have written this down wrong, but maybe it's because it's a contradiction. Anyway, she slams someone against the table. She knocks the jar, and then the jar flies through the air, and then either the jar hits somebody or the person that she tackled stumbled backwards. Point is, Neil Marshall falls backwards against a statue, and the statue has a knife in it, and that's what killed him. And what's cool is Phoenix doesn't exactly say it. He just says she tackled someone and then blah 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 knife. There's this incredible moment where there's a close-up shot of every single person in the courtroom, including Lana, including Emma, including the judge. Everyone realizes the truth of what you just said, which is that Emma accidentally killed him. So everyone's really, really upset. Turns out Emma thought she was saving Neil, but she killed him all along. Lana rearranged the entire scene to protect Emma. She's very upset, but we still have no proof. It's the jar, though. So we present the jar. The jar had these weird blood splotches on it that apparently had been wiped off. They said maybe it was Lana that wiped off the blood splotches. Makes sense, to protect her sister. You connect the dots on the blood splotches, and there's only one reasonable way you can connect what's there to see what would have been there already. It says Emma on the jar. Just straight up wrote her name on it. Everyone's very, very, very sad about this. Then I wrote, then Joe Dark shows up, which that's wrong.
Yeah,
Joe Dark doesn't show up.
From what I was remembering,
Joe Dark doesn't show up. He's dead.
He is dead. Yes.
I don't know why. These are bad notes. Someone shows up. It doesn't matter who shows up. I guess it was probably Gant.
Not gonna lie, that would have been so cool.
Yeah,
he just shows up. I'm alive. What?
Maybe it was Gant who shows up. Whatever.
That would have been the ultimate turnabout.
Whoever it is who shows up on screen says the part that matters, which is that, yeah, that's right. Joe was sentenced to execution wrongly. He was wrongly sentenced to execution for killing Marshall because he didn't kill Marshall. There's too much hollering, so there's a recess. So, we get to the recess. Obviously, Edgeworth is very, very upset about this because he was the one who was over that case, right? They're like, what the fuck do we do? In the recess, Gumshoe shows up. He says his classic line where he's like, oh, I'm not interrupting. And, of course, he always is. He says, hey, Lana sent you this. It's a book of evidence law, which is really cool. Turns out that the nitpicky nature of procedural law is going to become very important. There's two main rules. It's funny. It's a whole book of evidence law, but there's just two laws that are really easy to explain. The first one is that all evidence must be approved by the chief of police or by the police department. And then the second evidence is that the second law is that new evidence may not be presented unless it is relevant to unless it is known to be relevant to the case. Those are the two rules. So we go to the next part, and my notes get a little shaky here, so I'm going to open up something else. Is this it? Give me about 2 seconds to catch up here.
While you look for that, it's going to be a good case when like evidence law becomes important to whatever it is you're going to have to do.
What's that?
No, I was just saying, like, you always know it's going to be a good case when, like, all of a sudden the procedural laws of as like backwards as the Phoenix Wright law system is. You have to use that.
Shit's about to get nitty and picky. So anyway, so you go into the thing, and we have at this point, they're saying, Edgeworth, you're really going to get fucked up. We accept the prosecution's proposal. Deals with the witness. What? Oh, right. They're like, Edgeworth, you fucked up. You suck ass. Eventually, point is, the defense calls Damon Gant. Nick is like, this is my last chance. I have to call Damon Gant to the course. To the stand is the word. So Phoenix is like, yeah, I mean, Gant was there. We should see what he has to say about it. Now, at this point, Phoenix knows what he's doing, but we don't necessarily know what he's doing. So we call... Huh?
I think it's like important to mention that there's just a little bit of an issue with him actually, presenting, like, because he's under no obligation to actually testify or to do anything like that because he's the chief of police. So he has like whatever the legal equivalent of like diplomatic immunity is. He could just say, "I don't want to testify. I don't have to. You can't make me."
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he does that in a little bit, but he doesn't here. So yeah, he calls him and he says pretty normal stuff. He says, Neil and I were questioning him. There was a power outage. When I went to the office, I found Lana there. She had already done all the stuff that we just said. Aha! So there you see, I had nothing to do with any of it. So you super duper duper break it apart, and after a lot of going back and forth, you press him, you show evidence, there's back and forth, and then you show the most important thing, which is that the evidence, you reveal the evidence that you had this entire fucking time, right? Which is that the evidence was found in his room. You have, what is it? The cloth and the broken shard. The cloth doesn't become relevant till way, way, way later. In fact, you don't even say you have it. That's important. But you share after a bunch of shenanigans, you share the broken shard, and you're like, sorry, hold on. I'm sorry. There's one little logical issue I just realized. Oh, I got it. Here's something very important. Lana is not here right now. Sorry, I didn't mean to cause this huge delay. It's important to know that Lana is not... Well, basically, there's a logical issue with the story itself, at least I thought there was. So I was trying to see if it was my problem for taking notes wrong, or if it was actually something that we needed to discuss. Yeah, Lana's not here right now, which is very important. So anyway, you can show the evidence list, or you can show the piece of paper, or you can show the broken jar. It doesn't matter what you show. The point is, he was hiding evidence. So if he was hiding evidence, he clearly was there in the room, and he clearly was there before Lana was. And everyone's like, what? What does this matter? Gant says, you could have planted those things in my office. You can't say when I got those things. They could have been found after Dark was convicted. Why would I do a forgery? Blah, 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 blah. So you do all that shenanigans. Eventually, you say that, you don't really give solid proof of any of this. But what you do is you give a good suspicion. You say Gant helped with it. He didn't. It wasn't that Lana did all the shit first and then Gant showed up. It was Gant helped. And they're like, why did Gant help? And you say so that he would have leverage over her and have a control over her to blackmail her for the last 2 years of their entire goddamn careers. That makes sense. This checks out. So the judge is like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I'm not saying you've proven it right, but that's a reasonable thing to say. So then you're saying you're accusing of murder as well. So then we're going back to the murder originally at hand. They're saying, how is this relevant to what we're talking about now? And at that point, you show the ID card from, the actual case that we're investigating, the 77777. You prove that is in fact Gant's. And they're like, what? So it's funny. It used to be that we were trying to prove what happened in the past in order to prove what happens in the future, in the present. Now it's the other way around. If we can prove that Gant was involved in the current present-day case, then the reason he would be involved with the current present-day case would be because he was covering up something that he had done in the past, therefore proving that he had done something in the past to begin with. Did I explain that in a way that makes sense?
Yes.
Cool.
I think so.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, obviously, all three of us understand it because we've played the damn game, but I want to make sure the listeners understand. Yeah. So funny enough, we're revisiting the present case only for the sake of proving Gant was involved and thus was hiding something, and thus we're proving was Gant blackmailing Lana, basically. So at this point, it's actually pretty quick. All the stuff that we'd already sort of, predicted last time about how Gant, was blackmailing Lana, about how he actually killed Goodman, about how he stuffed Goodman's body into Edgeworth's car and made Edgeworth drive to the other place, and blah-de-blah-de-blah, all that stuff. You explain all that, and you show evidence to prove it, and all the stuff we already talked about, and I'm skipping past of it because we already lodged it out before, and yeah, and also it would take too long, and everyone's like, wow, damn, that's a lot. But why did Gant do it? And Phoenix says, no, the murder was committed spur of the moment. Gant probably didn't plan to do it. He just wanted to do it because he was scared of Goodman reinvestigating the case. There's one or two turnarounds where they're like, no, you didn't. But again, it's pretty simple. I mean, the evidence really does point to Gant a whole lot. And thus, there's a lot of, there's Gumshoe's bloody handprints on the locker. That is a pretty telling evidence, and it's the only way it all adds up.
Well, the bloody handprints on Gumshoe's locker, not Gumshoe.
Excuse me. Yes.
Important distinction.
I am sorry. The bloody handprint. I said I wasn't sleepy, but maybe I'm loopy. Maybe I drink too much coffee. Anyway,
you need to have just the right amount. You need to have 100 cups so you can go into that enlightened state like Fry in Futurama.
Yeah. So anyway, you get through all of it, and they're like, okay, all of your stuff makes a lot of sense. all of your stuff it's all a very reasonable conjecture, but like and I agree with the judge here. He's like, you still don't really have any good proof. Like, you're having to draw this elaborate conjecture about two separate events that happened 2 years apart that both make sense at the same time when you explain them both in the same way, but it's all still very, very, very tenuous. So what do you do? And you kind of freak out. You're like, I don't really have proof. What do I do? You know, typical Phoenix doesn't know what to do. Edgeworth says objection. Edgeworth says, Nick, there's still one more person that can answer all of these questions. There is someone here who knows everything. What?
I fucking love Edgeworth. Like, this, this whole case has just, like, I liked him before, but this whole case has made me just absolutely fall in love with the guy.
Yeah, he completely comes to life here. It's so good. He saves your ass like 50 times. But it's not because he's just like this good guy. It's not like he is a good guy, but I'm saying he's not just saving you to be nice. Like, he has his own motivations, you know? Like, he wants to see this through to the end. He does still want to do his job, though. He wants to do his job as a prosecutor, but he cares
more. He cares more about the truth than about just putting someone away.
Yeah, but he also kind of cares about vengeance. He also definitely is like angry and upset. Oh, yeah. And he also cares about clearing his own name. He's got a lot of motivations here, much more than Nick, who just wants to be a good defense attorney, right?
He also has a lot to lose here too, because of the prosecution and the police department's like involvement with each other. So I think like Gant even alludes to like there will be, you know, like repercussions for like what you're attempting to do right now.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short. Edgeworth says, Nick, you got one final thing you can do. We have to interrogate the one person who could answer all these questions because they were involved in both cases. And you get to pick who that is, and it's Lana. So you say, we're calling Lana to the stand for the second time. And this time around, like, you're gonna fucking tell the truth. Like, you have to tell... you have to tell the truth. And she's like, well, she doesn't say, okay, I'll tell the truth now, but she's just like, fine, I'll take the stand. And the judge calls another recess, just a very short one, just to give Lana time to get ready. Sorry for fumbling through that last bit, guys. I thought my notes were better than they actually were. I must have been very sleepy or distracted at the time. Whatever, a lot of shenanigans. Point is, we're in the end game now, right? So,
yes.
Also, one very important point. At some point, when you're interrogating Gant, when he's done, he basically says, like... he basically makes a deal with the judge, where he is sort of really being pressed and pressured. So, he gives you some valuable information that you needed, that you were trying to get out of him. He confesses to some of the stuff we just talked about. But in return, he's like, I'm like Francesco was saying, like... using my immunity. Basically, he's saying I'm waiving my right to testify anymore. You know, or he's saying I'm officially ending my testimony, and the judge is like, that's a big risk. If you say that, then like you are no longer able to say anything else. Like from now on, you're done. And Gant's like, that's fine. I have nothing more to say. So that's an important piece of plot information. So. Final little bit. During the final recess, is there anything important? No. They're both annoyed that Gant refused to testify. But that's it. So whatever. So final trial. Lana is now on the stand. Lana says she fabricated 2 evidences all her own. Her only goal was to get Dark convicted. So at this point, she's totally confessing. She's like, or she's not actually. She still says, "My sister didn't kill him." She will not admit that her sister killed. Neil Armstrong. She won't admit it. So, but like. At this point, it's like pretty clear that she did it. Even Emma is saying, like, sister, like, just tell the truth. We all know that I did it. It's fine. You know, I'm not going to be that traumatized by it. And Lana's like, no, I will not admit that you did it. So she says, I fabricated 2 evidences, not to change the truth, but I wanted to make sure that Dark, who did do the murder, got convicted. Already, that's a little sketchy. If he did it, why you gotta fabricate evidence?
Doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, but she's trying to say that, like, the evidence wasn't very strong. It was, like, confusing. So she was making it stronger, more simplistic evidence to make sure that he got convicted, which, I mean, he did, and, you know, very much so. So she says when she arrived on the scene, the pro prosecutor ward was inside of Marshall. The other knife was nearby, had been knocked away. She broke off the tip of the knife and planted it in the body. This is the point where I dramatically realized the actual real double truth of the situation. I can see in my notes now, but I won't say what it is. Here's the thing. She keeps saying Emma didn't do it. And what do we know about Lana Skye? She doesn't lie.
Yep.
We found out last time. That the truth of last week's episode. How do we find out the truth? We found out that she doesn't ever lie. She just words her words very, very carefully. Like when she kept saying, I stabbed the guy. I stabbed the guy. Not the same as I killed him, right?
Yeah, just I stabbed him.
So what does she keep saying? She keeps saying, Emma didn't kill the guy. And she doesn't lie. So anyway, she says that the jar shattered during the incident, and it threatened her plan. Don't really get why that's the case. But the jar was broken. So you, Nick, say, how could the victim have written in blood on the jar if it was broken? You can't write on something that's shattered in a million pieces. You write on the jar and then it's broken. Lana crucially says that she didn't know the jar had Emma's name written on it. I'm not sure if this is ever resolved as being true or not. I think she's telling the truth here. So the jar had blood on it, and she just wanted to wipe up the blood in order to clean up the case. So she wipes up the blood, and you ask her like 50 times, are you sure that this is all of it? And she's like, yeah, this is all of it. After you're sure that she really does believe that, you show her what you had in Gant's office, which she didn't know you had this because she wasn't here earlier. You show her the piece from Gant's office proving you thought you got all the pieces. You didn't. This one was missing. Gant must have gotten to the scene before you did. Now this part surprised even me. Turns out Lana wasn't lying here or even being sneaky. Lana didn't know this. Lana's wrong. She's not lying. She's not being sneaky. She's wrong. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Which, again, I thought was a huge shock. Because I don't know, you don't really think that people are just misguided, right? You usually think people are lying to you. Because that's how detectives work. So yeah. And Lana's just as shocked as we are. She's like, what? So her final testimony is this. She's like, fine, I'll fucking tell the truth, okay? Fine, whatever, fine. When I arrived, Marshall was impaled on the armor, which is how I knew that Emma did it. Gant helped me move the body. And then she tells you everything. Gant helped me move the body. Gant helped me clean up the pieces. Gant helped me with all of it. Then Gant is like, there's no proof of any of this, blah, 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 blah. And the judge is like, you don't have proof of this. And then she's like, actually, you do have proof. Wright's like, what? She's like, I gave you proof earlier. So you look at the book of evidence law that you received earlier. You flip it over. You open up the back cover. Inside the flap, there's a photo.
Shit.
You just didn't notice it was there. And it just straight up shows everything.
Yep.
It showed, which is kind of funny. It's like, wow, that was easy.
If we could have gotten this two episodes ago.
Although it turns out it's not so easy. Shows... it's interesting that she gave it to you, because it proves the thing that she was not wanting you to prove. So, shows an interesting relationship between how she sees Phoenix. So anyway, it straight up shows I keep getting the names mixed up. Neil Cicerega is impaled on the statue's knife. It's pretty damn gruesome, and there's blood all over him, and blah.
And there's a big chunk cut out of his vest.
Yeah, there's a big chunk cut out of his vest. So at this point, Wright is like, this proves it. Gant was there first. Gant took the... Like, we don't have straight up proof that Gant did it, but, like, we have proof that Gant took the piece. We have proof that Gant took the fabric, because you can see in the picture that there's a big piece of fabric torn off. Gant took the... although you don't say that. You're thinking that in your head. Gant took the fabric. But you say out loud, Gant took the piece. That proves that he had something to hide. He murdered the fucking guy. Yeah, he fucking murdered the guy. Gant was the killer all along. Lana just thought that Emma was the killer, and that's the reason for all of this shenanigans. Gant interrupts here. And Gant says, I'm going to testify again. This is bullshit. Edgy is like, no. You forfeited.
You gave up your right to that.
You gave up your right to... You used your right to refusal to testify earlier. You can't revoke it. And the judge is like, yeah, that's true, buddy. He gotcha. So he's real mad. But then Gant gets you in the final thing. And, this part's fucking good. I had no idea.
I want to say, the animation that he gets when he's, like, really fucking upset is fucking terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It is one of the scariest things I've seen.
Yeah, he turns into, like a devil villain. Like, he starts, like, glowing and stuff. It's, like, so freaky. So then this part is just... this next part is just masterful, okay? So, Gant says, okay, fine, I can't testify, but I can at least say one thing. He says, Wright, you have the final piece of evidence. You have another piece of evidence that proves... Or he doesn't say what it proves. He just says, you have a final piece of evidence that you don't want to show. And he's right. You have a piece of fabric. And if you recall from last time, a piece of fabric has fingerprints on it. They are Emma's fingerprints. Mm-hmm. And Gant says, you have an evidence that proves who did it. You don't want to show it. You're been accusing us this whole time of hiding evidence, fabricating evidence malpractice, but now you're doing it. So, what's it gonna fucking be? What decision did y'all make here?
I said that I wasn't going to show it at first. Or that I didn't have anything to show at first.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess Francesco already knows. I did too, but I really wasn't sure, because it's like, maybe I'm going to show the evidence and then argue my way out of it, right?
Yeah.
I did look it up, though. Apparently, if you do choose to show it, then, yeah, Emma gets convicted, and it's...
Well, it's a good thing I didn't choose that.
It's an instant game over, right? So the thing is, but you're like, well, wait, like, what the fuck? Like, I have this evidence. I don't believe Emma did it, but this evidence says that she did. Should I just not show it? So yeah, you say no. Nick engages in a little bit of word sneakiness. What does he say? He says, Your Honor, I cannot show any... He says, I do not have any new evidence that I can show at this time.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And of course, saying, at this time,
yeah,
is very sneaky. But still, it's like he's also just refusing, right? So it's bullshit. So you go back and forth and you do some shenanigans, and Gant finally confesses. He finally confesses. He says, I did it. I did the murder, but he says, I hid the jar piece, I hid the fabric. Why did I hide those things? Oh, just as insurance. You know, I hid two pieces of information. That way I would have control over the situation. I did all of this to control Lana. Emma did kill the victim, but, like, I worked with Lana to hide it all, and I used all of this, and they're like, why did you do that? And he's like, 'cause I'm a fucking sneaky snake who wants to succeed and advance through the ladder at all costs, and I wanted to have a lackey who would do anything I wanted. So, like, I definitely seized the moment and blackmailed Lana. Sorry, I'm admitting it. I did all this shit. but I didn't fucking kill anybody. And then, at this point, he's like, I didn't kill him, and you don't have any proof that I did. And Nick says, yeah, I do. And he says, what's your proof? And he says, so you're telling me, Nick prompts, he says, just to clarify here, on the day of the crime, you personally cut the fabric out of the victim's vest. He's like, yeah, I got to the crime scene, I was covering up the crime, I cut the fabric out of the victim's vest. And he's like, okay, you show the fabric that you weren't showing a second ago, but you are showing it now. And the judge is like, oh my god, it's a fabric, it's got fingerprints on it. Whoever the fingerprints belong to must be the real murderer. Edra says, I'm going to go run tests on it. Nick says, don't fucking, like, I already know who it is. It's Emma's fingerprints. Everybody freaks out, is super upset. Everyone's hollering. And Wright just says, nope, it's not over. Gant doesn't pay attention. He's mega gloating. He's like, gloat, 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 ah ha 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 ha. But Nick is still cool. And they're like, he's like, Nick, why are you so calm? You just lost the case. And he goes, absolute king shit. He goes, sorry, Your Honor, this court case isn't over yet. I have one thing I still have to prove. Who really killed Marshall? Which is like, no, like, everyone was just like, we literally just proved that Emma did it. And he's just like, hold on. We haven't proved who killed Marshall yet.
Like, but who really did?
Like, it's some unrelated thing. So then you get to show the contradiction. And this contradiction is really, really hard to figure out. This is the final... Actually, not the final boss of the game. The second to final boss. But still, it's tough, right? It's the hardest part as far as the player's actions are concerned, I would say. So you point at the picture. Here's what you realize. You point at the picture and you're like, yo, the front of this guy's chest is completely covered in blood, which makes sense because he'd been stabbed through the chest with a sword. He's bleeding all over everything. If what Gant just said is true, which we intentionally drew it out of him because I'm Nick and I like to trick people into saying things they don't mean, or that they don't want to say, is true, then when Gant cut the fabric off of the vest, it should be completely covered in blood. But there's no blood on it. It's just a bloodless piece of fabric with the handprint on it. What does that mean? That means at the time Emma pushed him, he did not get impaled. It wasn't Emma pushed him, then he got impaled, then later it got cut off. No. It was Emma pushed him, the fabric got cut off, and then he got impaled. That's interesting. How does that make any sense? Well, when Emma pushed him, Marshall must have just fallen down and got knocked unconscious or something. Then Gant came in first, cut out the cloth, and murdered Marshall. Bada bing, bada boom. Gant finally, desperately, he says, aha, you almost got me. But, so, he's saying, like, aha, you're wrong, but he keeps going back to his animation where he's, like, super, like, sweating and looking like a sad puppy. So he's like, you've clearly got him, but he's also trying to pretend like it's all cool. So he says, I refute all your allegations, because that cloth is illegal evidence. Why? Earlier, Nick said, I don't have any evidence. At the point he said that, that made that no longer evidence. Which the judge is like, yeah, he's right. That makes perfect sense. You said you had no evidence, so therefore that's not evidence. You can't present it. It's invalid. I'm trying to respect, laws of evidence giving in court. That way you don't have to take this. That way you don't have to take this to an appeals court in like 2 months. At this point, this isn't very hard for the player to figure out, but it is very hard, I think, for the character to figure out. Wright says, I do have proof that that it is still evidence. And they're like, what is your proof? And what do? You pull out your evidence book, your evidence law book, you point to it, and Wright says, fuck you. The reason me saying I didn't have any evidence wasn't malpractice and wasn't invalidating it was because at the time it wasn't evidence.
Yes. It couldn't be submitted until the police officially submitted
So that's what he says. He says, look at the rules. There's 2 rules. Rule number 1. Evidence cannot be submitted unless the police chief approves it. Obviously, since the police chief is, the one being implicated, he didn't explicitly deny it, but, we can assume he probably didn't approve the submitting of that evidence. Second thing, new evidence cannot be submitted unless it is relevant to the case. At the time, it wasn't relevant. It was just a fucking piece of cloth. It was just a piece of cloth with a handprint. We didn't know what it was. We didn't know where it came from. I didn't know where it came from. Of course you did, but, we didn't have any proof of it, right? It was just conjecture. He's like, I didn't know where it came from. I didn't know who it implicated. It was just a piece of paper. And also, I wasn't allowed to present it. So I said, I cannot present any new evidence. Or he said, I do not have any new evidence that I can present at this time. Because that was true. When I said that at the time, it was true. 10 seconds later, after Gant explained that he cut out some cloth and explained all of that, and that the cloth had a handprint on it, and that handprint belonged to the real killer, and that this cloth was going to prove everything, at that point, it became evidence. Motherfucker, just you basic. And at this point, Gant does his, I mentioned last time, his, FF6 style, JRPG style boss death scene, where the screen flashes white 1,000,000 times, and he goes between, a million different animations, and it just gets more and more intense, and then he disintegrates into nothingness. No, that's not true. But he, metaphorically does, right? Anyway, that's it. You beat him. At this point, he actually just goes up and confesses everything, which is cool. I don't know. The dude knows him. The jig is up, right?
Yep.
So he says, "Fine. I did all of this shit." He also explains the current thing too. He's like, "Yeah, Jake Marshall and John Goodman and Foodie McAngelson. They were all investigating everything. The reason I killed Goodman was Goodman. When I was meeting with Goodman in the case in the room, he wanted me to reopen the case. He said, buddy, I really want to reopen the case. I want to open some evidence for Marshall. He says, at the time, I freaked out because I didn't want him to reopen the case. I didn't want Marshall to figure things out. Turns out there was a knife in the room, so I lost my cool. I killed the guy. Turns out he wasn't as good at committing crimes as he was at investigating them. I mean, really, he left a lot of clues. He left a lot of fuck-ups, honestly. The only reason he was able to almost get away with it wasn't because he was good at doing a crime, but was because he was good at covering up crimes. And good at leveraging his power and, having a lackey that he has blackmail over. So Lana takes a stand again. Phoenix explains, Emma did nothing wrong. Gant betrayed you. You have no reason to stay silent. She's like, you're right. Fine. I'm going to say everything. And then she says everything. So, turns out she kind of was lying because she did think that Emma did it.
Yes.
Or maybe she secretly had a suspicion that Gant did it all along, but couldn't say that on account of the leverage she had over her. I'm not sure which of those it is. But, at the time, she thought her sister had committed a murder. She freaked out. And ever since then, hasn't been able to do anything to get away from that. And they're like, God damn. Now they do say, hey, you are still an accomplice to lots of crimes at this point. We get you were blackmailed, but still, you did a lot of bad stuff. You covered up. You did a lot of malpractice. But you know what? That's for later. We'll have a trial. You're obviously going to be put on trial for that kind of stuff later. Hopefully, we can be nice to you. I think the judge even says, I don't think that you're really to blame for this, but that's for a later court to decide. Hopefully, someone with a better judge.
Oh my God, I know.
And she says,
this judge is borderline totally incompetent.
Yep. So she says, good job. Even though she's in trouble, they're like, why are you so smiling? And she is very smiling, which is the animation we haven't seen yet. And she's like, I'm just glad to be free of this.
Yeah, she looks like a huge weight has been lifted.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just glad that this weight has been lifted off of my shoulders. So it's over. So you go out to the place. And there's one interesting point where she says, thank you, Miles Edgeworth. Thank you, Phoenix Wright, for all you've done for me. And then you leave. Outside, everyone's mostly happy, but Emma shows up and is not so happy. And you're like, what the heck, Emma? Why are you so upset? And first of all, she's just overcome by a lot of, grief and trauma. But also, she's like, my sister thanked the two of you for helping her, but she didn't thank me, even though I also helped. That's weird. Why doesn't my sister think that does she still love me? Blah, 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 blah. And then Lana comes out, and she says, she actually doesn't say why she didn't thank her, although I'm guessing it's because why would you want to thank your sister for doing something that you wanted your sister to have no part in it, right? If Lana had her way, her sister would not have had to do any of the things that she did. Obviously, Lana feels very guilty about that, so why would she be thankful? Instead of thank you for saving me, it should have been more like, I'm sorry that I failed to protect you, right? Yes. From having to save me, but with your detective skills. Anyway, then she confesses. She says, Emma, I didn't do the right thing as your sister. I thought the right thing to do was to stop you from learning about the crime that you committed and to do all this stuff to protect you. But then I distanced myself from you as your sister, and we lost our emotional bond, and you felt betrayed and abandoned and lonely for 2 years. And that was actually way worse. That was not what I should have done as a sister, and I should have been honest with you. I shouldn't have lied to you. I should have told you the truth and trusted that you were a mature enough girl to handle it. So turns out her sort of core original sin was not lying to you or lying to everyone else, but lying to her sister. That was the mistake that she made. So they make up. They say, we're going to try and repair our relationship. And then finally, you're talking about something, I forget, and Lana is like, Miles, you can show up now. And everyone's like, what? And then Miles pops up on screen, and they're like, he was hiding. And then Nick's like, where was he hiding? What was he hiding behind? And the funny thing is, the way that this visual novel graphic style works, where was he hiding? I don't know, off screen?
I just had to look slightly to the left, but I couldn't do that because my gaze is fixated on this one position in the room. Yeah. We don't have to explain if he was hiding behind a potted plant or behind a watercolor. Phoenix Wright is a cat, and he just doesn't have good object permanence. So
it's like you were not in my field of vision. What happened?
Where's Miles? Yeah. But yeah, no. It's just funny. I just see it as a joke because, at no point do any of these places have 3D spatial reality, except for the crime scenes where you get a map of the crime scene, right? But if you don't you don't know what the layout is of this courtroom lobby. So yeah, the dude was just hiding off screen. So anyway, the point is, Edgeworth is still really sad. He's bummed out. He's really sad. Why wouldn't he be? He's like, I'm a failure as a prosecutor, blah, 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 blah. And also, the important thing is that before Damon Gant died, he said to Miles, he said something like, he gave a villain speech where you're like, you and me are the same. All villains love to do. Mm-hmm. So he gives Miles a you and me are the same villain speech. And he says the reason is that you hate criminals just as much as I do. You'll see that when you're working alone, you have to have the weapons to win. He says something like that. And this is really fucking Miles up. He's like, yeah, he was right. I am just like him. I really do hate villains. Basically, he's being Sasuke, and he's realizing that he's dark on the inside, and he's saying that he's going to stop being a prosecutor. He's saying, I'm going to quit I'm going to hang up my hat. I have no right. I have no business being a prosecutor. And Nick is like, why is that again? And he's like, because like Gant said, when you're all alone, you have to have any evidence you need to succeed. And Lana is like, aha! But the real evidence was the power of friendship all along. She's like,
because the friends we made along the way.
Yeah, she gives a super epic anime speech where she says, "You're not alone. It was you and Nick and me and everyone working together to find the truth." And how do you prove that? You prove it by presenting a piece of evidence that Nick couldn't get on his own, and Miles couldn't get on his own, a piece of evidence that needed both of you working together as friends to find. And what is it? That's right, it is the evidence list.
It's the evidence.
Yep, because you literally had half of it, he literally had half of it. It's the fucking movie with the two separated twins, where they each had half of a heart locket. No, they each had half of a family photo. You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're
talking about. The Parent Trap.
Oh, Parent Trap.
It's the fucking Parent Trap.
I don't know why I couldn't think of that.
So you show that y'all both literally had half of a piece of paper that goes together to make a final picture of the crime scene. And it
turns out they're twins.
It turns out they're twins. It turns out they love each other and are best friends. And Miles, he doesn't like break down and cry or say thank you, Phoenix. He just kind of looks at it and he's like, huh. And then he's like, well, gotta go. And he just fucking leaves. Because that's him, right? He doesn't know how to deal with his emotions.
No.
But like he's clearly very, very heartwarmed by this. But he's just like, well, bye. Yep, and that's it. And then we get a little epilogue where we learn various things. It's mostly not particularly interesting. What's his buddy, the really shitty cop, Ace Watkins or whatever? Meekins, yeah. He gets demoted from detective to guard, which makes a lot of sense.
Do you mean Gumshoe?
No.
Okay, it is Meekins.
Yeah. He gets demoted. You find out something cute here, which is that turns out the person that he admires most of all is Gumshoe. So we think that Gumshoe is kind of a fuck-up loser, but to Meekins, Gumshoe is a hero and is a way better cop than he'll ever be. So he says, one day I'll be like Gumshoe.
It's really cute.
Gumshoe, they decided to not charge him for the last couple of terrible things that he did. Like breaking into Gant's office and stuff. Apparently the police chief said, or the head detective said to Gumshoe, he said that, giving you yet another demerit would basically be worse than firing you. Because you have so many demerits. And like, I don't know, Emma is going off to Europe, to chill and to study the art of science investigation. She's going to miss Lana, but she understands that Lana needs to kind of get her shit together here. There's going to be a lot going on, so she's going to go off and study. You learn that Nick is kind of going back into, like, I gotta find myself mode. You get a brief little appearance from Maya. She doesn't say anything new. She just says, hi, Nick. I'm still here. I can't wait to finish my training. It feels like it's been ages since it feels like that was a previous game. we were meeting Maya.
Yeah, it really does.
So much is fucking happening. I'm like, oh, it's Maya from the previous... Oh, wait, no, from earlier in this game. Feels like she's been gone for ages. You learn that Edgeworth is... What you said was heartwarming, but he's still kind of going on finding himself. I think he actually does quit being a prosecutor, right? I think he actually does do that, which would make sense because there's a whole other spin-off series they made called Miles Edgeworth Investigations, where I think you just do investigation. Actually,
that was the one that Francesco, you said you played that was Japanese only?
Yeah. So I don't really kind of want to spoil what exactly happens with him, because I think that becomes a major part of the next two games.
Yeah, it does.
Main series Phoenix games, where, I think he's even trying to figure out what all of the stuff that happened in the first game means to him and how that shapes his outlook kind of going forward.
His investigation is into his own self.
Yeah.
The real investigation is your heart.
Yep.
Yeah. And, I want to mention one thing. This is all credits, right? The final thing in this game that happens before the credits, like the cap-off, like the final scene in the whole game. It's not the heartwarming scene with Edgeworth or the heartwarming scene with Emma, all that. No, the final thing that happens is Gumshoe shows up. Well, he actually already showed up. Turns out the reason that Lana's here, Lana's supposed to be in jail right now. But Gumshoe let her out just temporarily for like 30 minutes. And turns out in order to do that, this is what he reveals at the end of the game. Turned out in order to do that, he had to bribe a guard. And you're like, wow, that must cost a lot of money. And he's like, yeah, well, Nick, you're paying for it. So the final thing in the entire game is Gumshoe for the millionth time. Somebody is making Nick pay for something. And Nick is like, what? Like he's so fucking upset. And like he's such a millennial himbo icon. Like he's like not even happy anymore. Like he doesn't even care that he just solved the case. He's just pissed off because he's broke and can't pay for shit. And that just how it is.
Yep.
Anyway, that's the end of the game. Let's pause for a second. You made a noise. It's fine. Objection. Let's do memorable moments and Taco Bell. No, memorable moments and final thoughts on this case. Parts you liked, themes that you liked or thought were sweet, or thoughts on the entire game. Francesco, you first.
Oh, there's so many. They're so because this is like the end of the game, so there's like everything kind of comes to the forefront. And like even like Edgeworth, let's take that. Like look at what that guy's been through. You know, he thought that he murdered his father, you know, accidentally, and devoted his life to becoming a prosecutor, you know, under you know, Von Karma and like all of that. And like you know what, just the poor guy has a lot going on. He's just, there's so much like he has to deal with now post this case. And you know, I think he's got like to reflect and figure out what he's going to do going forward. I mean, like that was like, I really thought, like, even just from a game perspective, because we talked a little bit about in previous episodes that like this was an add-on case. It wasn't a case that came with the original, what was originally Ace Attorney. And I think it just compounded the whole Edgeworth situation, really just like changed most of these characters' lives and really kind of amplified some of the tension and drama they had to go through.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like Nick is now like a somewhat successful attorney. You know, he's got like a few good cases under his belt. You know, he's not like a one-hit wonder where you got like one person out and, you know, it was like a big case. He's got like 3 or 4 with like very major consequences and implications. You have, you know, I mean, even Gumshoe goes through his own kind of self-discovery, I think, through the course of this, where I think he kind of grows a little, like the camaraderie between him and Edgeworth kind of go up a little bit of a level. Like Edgeworth starts to see him as being unreliable, but reliably unreliable. If that makes sense. Like, you know, it's like, I can't count on you, but I could always count on you to not be counted on. And because of that, you're extremely countable.
Yeah. He can't count on Gumshoe to do what he's trying to do intentionally and successfully, but he can count on Gumshoe to help him solve the case accidentally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, he has. So. And that happens to the real life people. You know, sometimes it's like you have to suss out what your relationship is with somebody, even if it's abnormal. I have 2 quick things. I have one memorable moment, or does this count as 1 or 2? I guess two, and also one like thematic idea that I want to highlight. First of all, at one point, Edgeworth, I forget when this is. This could be at any point during today. It could be when you're wanting to show the handprint or earlier. Who knows? But Edgeworth says, the exposure of truth sometimes results in tragedy. However, no matter how tragic the truth may be, it would be an even greater tragedy to avert one's eyes from it. I don't know if I actually agree with that. I think that a lot of professional ethicists say that, like, and even like legal ethicists, you know, like people will say, like, whenever you're investigating, like, for example, like sexual assault, you don't want to investigate the sexual assault in a way that just causes absurd amounts of trauma to the victim, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes revealing something for the sake of truth can cause more damage than you might want. Anyway, but that's Edgeworth's philosophy. So I think that's cool. And I think that the game does make an interesting case for that. In this case, it's, you know, turns out the truth ended up being good in the end all along. A second thing...
Can we... Sorry, could we take a minute to, like, decouple that a little bit? Because I think, like, it brings up a interesting point with this whole series in general.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Like, there'll be... Like, there was even, like, one of the earlier cases that we went through where, with lacking options, Phoenix basically pinned, you know, someone who was innocent of being, like, a murderer. And it all turned out good in the end. You know, I'm referencing Old Bag. Like, in the earlier case. Like, he's like, you did it. And she's like, what? No, you know, and, like, that gave him vital evidence that he needed to carry the case forward in the direction that ultimately led to the truth. But, like, I mean, that could, like, if that goes wrong, that could mess up some people's lives quite a bit. You know, and the game kind of, like, it just kind of not glosses over it, but, like, it just, oh, he had to do what he had to do, and, you know, like, let's not think about it. They're not being charged anyway, so it's not a big deal.
But in the other... I mean... Oh, no, you go on.
I was just going to say, like, it is a video game, so we can't expect it to have all the subtle nuances that we might want it to, like if we were reading a book or watching a movie.
Oh, yeah. And also it's like a cheesy anime, like, it's like children, it's like simplified. I think that's interesting, though, is that I think the story does, in many ways, suss that out, though. They say the bad guys are sneaky and lie and manipulate, and they're bad. Phoenix also is sneaky and lies and manipulates, but he's good. But the difference is that he is a lot more tender about it, right? Like, there's a lot of things that the good guy at Phoenix won't do that the villains do. So, like, the game, I think, is very much sussing out sort of a dialectic of, like, ends versus means. But where you land on that, I think part of it is just personal ethics. You know, I think that I might disagree on some of whether what Nick does is right or not. But I think that you could also make a case that what he does is okay. Because he definitely does it with more tenderness, right? He's always showing care for his clients. And what's the number one thing? The number one thing, and this is actually the thing that I want to bring up is, again, you always come back to Nick believing in his clients. But in this case, we see him believing in his clients even more. He doesn't just believe that Lana didn't commit a murder. He even believes that Lana isn't lying, which is another level, right? And that's what this particular portion, this final portion of this case, hinged on instead of him picking apart her lies, saying, you know what? Let's assume that you're not lying. And assuming that she wasn't lying was how we were able to find out that she was in fact wrong. She had been lied to. And that's a whole other level of trust, right? Like, she was even saying, like he could have been like, I know you're lying to cover something up, but I still believe you didn't do it. But he's just like, no, utmost trust in you. And I don't think he would never, ever, ever believe someone's lying. But I think that in this case, he was a judge of character. He could tell. She's not lying. She hasn't lied before. She never will. She's a good person who doesn't believe in lying, except when, you know, she's being blackmailed into it. She's picking her words carefully. I'm going to use that information as part of my investigation. So it shows that belief and faith and good intentions of people is not just naivete. That's actually his superpower. That's what lets him win. Which is cool as shit. Anyway, I also have one dumb memorable moment. At one point, I forget when, Edgeworth says objection, and then he says, we can prove this all along. And Phoenix, of all the people, Phoenix mutters to himself, you gotta admire him for his courage, considering he has no evidence. Which is like, Nick, honey, like, you have no room to talk, dude. Like, how are you surprised that Edgeworth does the same thing that you do every single fucking case? I think that's hilarious. I think it rules. Any other final things we want to touch before we wrap this up?
I have one memorable moment. I think it's during the epilogue. We get to see how truly incompetent this judge is.
Yes, I skipped past that part, let me tell you.
even I once wasted an entire day looking for my dentures. They were in my mouth all along. Can you believe that? And I'm just like, yes, actually, after seeing you through all these trials, I can believe that. You are an idiot.
That's so fucking funny.
I love him, though.
Also, at the end, he's like, you get your little epilogue where he's commenting on how everyone ended up, and he's like, man, I guess in the end that new upshot lawyer really was great. What was his name? Mr. Left?
Left, yeah.
You can't even remember your name. And then he's like, anyway, I gotta go get to another trial. And he disappears. And then he pops back up and he goes, oops, I forgot my gavel. And it's like, God, fucking dipshit.
I love this judge.
I love the goddamn judge.
So, quick aside on the judge. In the Miles Edgeworth Investigations game, I can't remember if it was the first one or the second one, but you investigate, I think, like the courthouse at one point, and there's a plaque for the judge. And if you read the plaque, it says that he is something to the effect of, like, he's a very well-respected judge, like within the community, because he has this unusual method of letting cases come to the truth, even if they go in, like, unexpected ways.
So him being a weird dumbass is actually just part of him secretly actually his strategy of helping everyone find the truth.
I don't fucking buy
it.
Yeah, I don't fucking buy it either. No, he just says it.
Exactly. So he's like one of the best judges in the Phoenix Wright world because, he has discovered the truth in cases where the truth was, obscured or, criminals would have won.
Like, on one hand, there are lots of times when you present an extremely fucking stupid, tenuous objection and he allows it, which lets you save the day. On the other hand, there's a million times when the villains do the same thing. And he's like, yeah. I'll allow it. He has a very anything goes philosophy towards judging. Fucking dipshit.
But yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
Yep. I think we should have announced this last week, but whatever, we're announcing it this week. Ding, ding, ding. So, the polling has closed. I don't have it open right now, but I don't need to. We all know who won. The winner was the one we suggested last time. It is Ease. So we are playing starting next week, the Ease series. Ease 1 and Ease 2, both in a row. Apparently they kind of are one story. They're on a billion different consoles. If nothing else, you can get them on Steam. We're starting next week. Francesco, we will be saying goodbye to Francesco, but we will be saying hallosh to a new guest, someone who isn't Sam, because Sam is still out.
Yes.
So thank you all for having me.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
The cast has been awesome.
Yeah, we enjoyed your not just your general comments, but also your expertise, and also your voice sounds kind of like Sam, so it's almost like he was here all along.
Yeah, it does sound a little Sammy.
Filling in the Sam quota for the podcast. I get it.
Hell yeah.
It's like he never left.
No, you're your own person. You're not just Sam. A new Sam. In fact, maybe Sam is actually just going to be a replacement Francesco from here on.
Yeah.
That's true. Sorry, Sam. Anyway, yeah, so Ease is great. Go get it. We do have a little note from Sam. Sam says that according to him, So Ys, the game, if you're playing a modern version of the game, it probably has multiple soundtracks because Falcom are fucking nuts, and every single time they remake their damn games, they give them entirely new soundtracks, not rearranged. We're talking just like it's new music, which is stupid and weird, but sure, it's cool. Sam recommends playing with the original soundtrack because the original soundtrack, he says it sounds a lot like Phoenix Wright, actually. So it's got that big chonky chip because of the console that it was originally for, the PC Engine. It gives it that big chonky chip sound, which I agree. Remember how I said that this game's music, Phoenix Wright, sounds a lot like the music to the original 2 Metal Gear games? Well, those are... Oh, wait, no, those are MSX games, not PC Engine. Whatever, fucking who cares. Point is, Nick recommends the first soundtrack. You can listen... Sam.
Sam!
You can either... And as we all know, Sam has never had bad taste in anything, like music or anything like that. So, you can either listen to Sam, or you can say fuck it and listen to the other soundtracks. Just thought I'd relay that information.
Yeah.
So, next week...
We don't care what you do. We're just making suggestions.
Yeah. I will go ahead and say, since we got to say this too, next week... Francesco, do you think that you will be playing along with us? I mean, you won't be on the pod, but do you think you'll be playing the game?
Yeah, I've played East before, so I might dust it off and try it again. It's not particularly long game, so it's a really comforting, laying down in bed, just beating up some enemies.
Sam says that we're playing Ease 1. And the stopping point is we're going up. There's apparently a character named Feena, and apparently, wow, spoilers, Sam, we have to save her. So he says that we play until we free Feena from the mountain's shrine, and then you save before you enter the shrine a second time. So we've saved Princess Leia from the Death Star, but we haven't gone back to the Death Star again to blow it up. So that's when we save. So, if you're playing along with us, please play to that point, or otherwise, you're gonna go to jail. Yeah, cool. This has been RPG Book Club. Check us out at frickin' rpgbook.club. And it has links to our Ko-Fi. Please donate. That way you can tell us to play more games. We keep getting more and more donors, which means we have to play more and more games. Oops. Kind of upset about it. No, I'm just kidding. We like playing games, and I like having free choice removed from me. I don't want to have to decide what games I play. I like it when you tell me what games to play. So we got lots of fun stuff coming down the pipe. Eli, do you have anything to plug?
Not at the moment.
Wow, you usually have so much stuff to plug, but I guess that was then and this is now. I guess you're less busy, which is good. I'm glad you're enjoying your free time. Francesco, do you have anything you want to plug?
No, just if you're on Twitter, JRPGT at Twitter. What's the
at JRPGT?
At JRPGT on Twitter.
Okay. I don't understand these newfangled technologies.
He's a good follow. You should give him a follow. I'm glad I follow him. Yes. And for me, I almost have something to plug, and I'm so excited about it.
Ooh.
But unfortunately, I can't tell y'all yet. It's a secret, so maybe I'll tell y'all next week.
Sounds good.
Cool, yeah. So, see y'all next week. We're playing fucking Ease, which is a series I've been wanting to play forever. This has been RPG Book Club. I am, as always, Maddie Grace Webben.
I am Elias Sailor Eli Warren.
And I'm Francesco JRPGT Nasso.
Bye, everybody.
Toodaloo.
Bye.